by industry groups as well. So they'll write the law and then interact with the congressional staff but most of the work will be done by the industry groups, and so they're going to write laws that entrench their position.
It's like the people or the players buying the ref, like you were saying earlier.
Exactly.
It's that exact.
Right, so you get the regulatory capture of exactly yeah. The players shouldn't be paying the ref salary type of thing. Well, the ref shouldn't be thinking, I'm going to retire and get paid by the players. So it's kind of amazing that it works as well as it does given all these issues. So then PayPal, I ended up getting malaria anyway in 2001. 2001.
Yeah, tell us about this, the malaria thing.
That was you went on vacation, right?
Yeah, we were in South Africa with Kimball actually.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then came back and had like a near-death case of malaria.
Yeah, grew up in South Africa. We'd go to the bushveld all the time, to the what you guys call safari, and you just had a house in the bush. So you just would go there every few weeks or so. I don't think we ever took malaria tablets.
We didn't have malaria in those days. I think there was a drought and then a flood and then suddenly there were mosquitoes.
Yeah, right. And so we were told to, and we did take malaria tablets. You took them as well, and when he got back, he was in Stanford and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. Our uncle, who's a doctor in South Africa, is like, he has malaria, and it's like, no, he doesn't have malaria. We checked. So check again. Malaria kind of hides in the body, and then
that's why they wouldn't believe it.
So this was after PayPal got started?
Oh, this is 2001. So it's sort of after the PayPal coup. So I was on the PayPal board, and I was providing sort of product advice and whatnot. But in December, late December 2000, went on a trip to South Africa. Came back early January 2001. Had a severe case of malaria. Almost died.
I sat next to his bed for about 5 days, yellow, and tubes going in and out of him, just that early morning till late at night, just waiting to see. And then they said to me, get some pajamas for him, and the closest store was some like Dress for Less or something, so I just got him some pajamas, and then the next thing, after 5 days, he woke up and he says, so there's bunnies on my pajamas. I think he was bitter. I think they were bunnies or ducks or something, because that was what I could get. And then I knew he was better.
You were sleeping? I mean, like it affected your brain that harshly?
Yeah, no, it was bad. It was really bad.
So that changed your perspective? How did it influence you after that?
I don't know. I don't think it changed me that much, would you say?
I don't think it changed you.
No, I don't think it did.
Recovered and went back to
yeah.
But how many times have you been on vacation?
I lost like 50 pounds, though. It was great.
So no more vacations, though.
Well, yeah, it took me like almost 6 months to get back to normal.
Wow.
So, and then in 2001, I was thinking about what to do next, and I thought there's like, okay, sustainable energy, like basically electric cars, solar, space, and then a friend of mine asked me, so what are you gonna do next? I said, well, so I would love to do something in space, but I didn't think there's anything that a private individual could do in space. But at least I'm going to go on the NASA website and find out when people are going to Mars. And I go on the NASA website, and it's nowhere to be found. And so I'm like, well, this is pretty weird. And then I discovered that it was actually a NASA policy not to talk about it.
Really?
Yeah, at the time.
Huh. Why was that, do you think?
What I was told is that when George Bush the First was when he was elected, he said he asked NASA to put together a plan to send people to Mars in 90 days. They came back with a plan, and it was $500 billion. And it says, well, this is like political suicide. So then after that, talk of manned missions to Mars were banned. That's what I sold. Yeah. So anyway, so it's like, well, maybe there's something that can be done here to get the public excited about going to Mars. And if I get the public excited, then they will vote NASA to have more funding. And so the original idea for SpaceX was just to have a philanthropic mission to Mars.
Yeah, actually, it started as a graphic of a pot plant. You just need to get the pot plant to Mars. It was like an inspiration.
Sure.
Just as a way to prove to the world that it could be done.
Yeah. So the mission was called Mars Oasis. It was seeds and dehydrated nutrient gel that would hydrate upon landing. You get this great picture of green plants on a red background. Be like the first sort of life as we know it on Mars, and you can also learn a lot about what does it take to keep plants alive and have a little miniature greenhouse on surface of Mars. So that's what I initially pursued as like a way to basically increase NASA's budget. It wasn't let's create a space company. It was how do we get NASA's budget increased so we can go send people to Mars. And I was trying to figure out how to get this thing launched, and the rockets, the European and US rockets, were too expensive and I couldn't afford them. So I went to Russia to try to buy some ICBMs in 2001, literally. And they kept raising the price on me, and it was being quite difficult. And I said, I could afford to pay $9 million for an ICBM, but not 20, because I figured we need to do 2 of these missions, because odds are good that one would fail, and then it could have a negative impact potentially. So that was pretty weird, being in Moscow trying to buy ICBMs in 2001.
That's amazing.
How do you negotiate to buy an ICBM?
Yeah, I call up the military and say, well, they gotta get rid of these things anyway because of the arms reduction treaties. So it's like, if you're gonna throw it away, I'll take it off your hands. They have to. It was like SS-18 Ginevra. It was the biggest nuclear missile in the Russian fleet, and but anyway, they decommission these things. So why not just tell me them instead? And then every time I talk to them, the price would go up, and I'm like, this is not good. Because so even if once we do a deal, I'm probably going to get shafted afterwards too. And this is the pre-deal shafting. And it's like, what's going to be after, or it's after I've given the money, then it's not going to be good. So, and I started looking into it as like, why do rockets cost so much? And so there's nothing fundamental about why they should cost so much. If you add up the materials and say, it's not like the raw materials cost that much. You really just need to figure out a smart way to get the materials in that shape. And then we need to make rockets reusable. So, like any form of transport, if it's not reusable, it's extremely expensive. If cars were single use, and you need a round trip, if you bought a car for $20,000, then your round trip will cost you $40,000.
That's true.
Well, it's crazy. So it's the same thing's true for aircraft and boats and rockets and everything. So the rockets were expensive even as expendable things, but then they were also not reusable. So there's no way we're going to have a city on Mars unless we can have reusable, low-cost, reliable rockets. That's fundamentally the issue. So I came to the conclusion that even if this Mars Oasis mission was successful, it would still not result in it would not materially further the goal of being a multi-planet species, because the rocket technology was not good enough, and it was not getting better. In fact, it was arguably getting worse. So the real thing that needed to be solved here is reusable rocketry and lowering the cost of access to space. And that's like, okay, well, I'm gonna try to do that. So then I got SpaceX started in early 2002, basically. And I was living in Palo Alto at the time, but most of the engineering expertise was in Southern California, so that's why I moved to LA.
Did you ever have any, like, even inkling of imagination that you could be doing, you know, dozen launches a year and being contracted with NASA? Is that even like?
I thought that was very. I thought we had, 10% chance of success or something like that.
You ended up being chief engineer, right?
Yeah.
Because like no one wanted to give up their secure jobs with ULA and something
Not-
at the beginning.
Exactly. I actually tried to hire. Basically, there'd been a number of attempts at doing a sort of a private rocket company or commercial rocket company, and they all failed effectively. And that's to the degree that it was like a joke in the aerospace industry. Like, how do you make a large portion in the rocket? Start with a. Yeah, how do you make a small fortune in the rocket industry? Start with a large one. Pretty soon it's going to be small.
From business.
Yeah, they told me that joke so many times. I would just jump to the punchline, it was very hard to recruit people because I had not built any physical hardware before. And I kept being called internet guy. For the longest time, for ages. And finally, for the first 10 years, they were calling me internet guy, or basically internet entrepreneur / fool. He's trying to start a rocket company. What if an idiot? That was generally how it went. So it was quite hard to recruit people, and especially if somebody's got like a secure job at Boeing or Lockheed or something like that. Then trying to recruit them to be, chief engineer of a solid rocket company was hopeless. So basically, nobody who was good was willing to join, and there was no point in hiring somebody who wasn't good. So I ended up being chief engineer, which is, so the first 3 launches failed, and probably if I'd been better, then we would have gotten to orbit sooner. So it took me a while to learn all these things. So
From books or?
Books and talking to people.
Did you go to Utah and talk to anybody, like at ATK Orbital?
Oh yeah, I visited ATK.
Yeah.
Orbital is
my
at
phone
Dallas,
there.
Virginia.
Yeah.
So yeah, I visited ATK, visited Orbital. And Orbital had a success with the solid rocket based Pegasus, but they'd also gotten like an 8 launch deal from DARPA. So okay, if you're starting off with basically an 8 launch deal from DARPA, that's a good situation. We did not have a launch deal from anyone. And Pegasus is there's some clever engineering with Pegasus, but fundamentally, I think launching rockets from planes is not sensible.
Yeah.
It sounds like it would be a good idea, but it's not. And then even Orbital went away from doing that with as soon as you get past a certain size, they went to ground launched.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere that ATK, Morton Thiokol, they were doing snowcats, they were doing ski lifts, and they sold that to the man who made the DeLorean.
Really?
Yeah. I just read that in their Wikipedia. I'm like, oh, that's fascinating way to come around.
So, yeah. Okay, so we got SpaceX going. and that was very difficult. We got the Falcon 1 rocket built. It was very simple. It's the simplest overall rocket that's liquid fueled, so that it had the potential for reusability, for useful reusability. And then we had 3 failures. Finally got to orbit at the end of 2008. So
That was incredible. Going down to Kwajalein and watching.
yeah, you wrote it like a blog for a while.
Yeah, I actually still have it up there. It's it's an old blogging platform that Google still keeps alive. It's called quajrockets.blogspot.com.
I think it's going to get a lot of traffic soon.
Yeah, totally. Send it. Check it out. It's all there. It's photos and photos of there was one photo of Elon picking up a satellite. We launched the rocket and the rocket exploded, which was very, very, very sad. Everyone's super sad. People were like pouring their heart and soul into the rocket. And the satellite was, I think, a U.S. Navy or
Air Force Academy.
Air Force Academy, and it was thrown out of the rocket and fell through the roof of the hangar.
Well, not this is like where you really think.
Hangar, exactly. It's like a stand-up
And
tent.
small tool shed.
Yeah.
Wasn't supposed to do that.
Like the size, maybe the size of this room. The rocket, it had. This is the first launch failure, so it had there's a cracked aluminum B nut on that cracked during liftoff and created so there was an engine fire. This wouldn't have been the end of the world, but there was one of the helium lines was steel mesh overwrapped with a Kevlar sleeve, and it melted the sleeve. And so we lost pressure, pneumatic pressure, which caused the engine valves to close. So about 30 seconds after liftoff, the engine shut itself off due to the engine fire, and then it went ballistic and basically smashed in the rocks just about a couple hundred feet offshore. And when it was quite a big explosion actually. In that explosion, the satellite, which was in a fairing, went through the fairing on a ballistic arc back onto the island, smashed through the tool shed roof and onto the floor in a pretty reasonable condition. Like it wasn't totally gnarled.
Reuse it?
So we gave them back their satellite. so like, we didn't lose your satellite, but it may need some repair. It was so improbable that the satellite would come back. We had a couple more failures after that. 2008 was a particularly difficult year because we had the third failure in 2008. The Tesla financing round collapsed.
Oh, it was such a
And I
nightmare.
got divorced, and it was just
I think 2008 was
Bad year.
really, really bad.
yes.
That year.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could. I think 2018.
I think 2018 was worse.
What's up with 8?
Well, with the Model 3 ramp, right?
Oh, there were so many things that happened in 2018.
So much drama, it's insane.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sorry, so we're in 2002, starting SpaceX, moved down to LA. And it was pretty fun in the beginning. Like generally, startups are pretty fun in the beginning, and then you go through the, chasm of doom.
Chasm of doom.
Yeah,
Trough of sorrow.
it's trough of sorrow. Exactly, it's rough.
Despair.
Yeah, it's usually always like everyone's like super optimistic and excited for first year or so, and then things start to go awry, and there's usually many years of grief before there's finally a day dawns. So it's like 2002, and then about so in 2003 is when Rosen and JV Strobel called me up and said, "Hey, we want to have lunch." I want to say Harold Rosen, I think that's his name. But he weirdly had he was a pioneer in space technology and electric vehicles, which odd crossover, and he'd done some Rosen Motors, which is like sort of an electric vehicle company, and but he'd also been pioneer in geostationary satellites. He called me up and said, "Hey, let's have lunch." So we're at like lunch at like Smith and Wolanski or something in El Segundo, where SpaceX started, and so Strobel and Rosen, they were talking about space stuff, and then started talking about electric cars, and I said, "Oh yeah, so I was going to be working on electric car technology at Stanford," and then JV said, we should take a drive in the T0 from AC Propulsion. And I was like, because the timing is like lithium-ion batteries was really like the critical breakthrough needed for compelling electric cars. And so I was like, okay, I'll go try out their T0. Which had specs similar to what we eventually brought to market as Tesla Roadster. So then, so I got a ride in the T0, and then I tried to convince Al Cacconi and Tom Gage to commercialize the T0. Now the T0, and there's like lots of stuff online about it. It didn't have doors or a roof, so. Clearly you need to add those things, or any safety systems, and it was very unreliable, because it was just like sort of a proof of concept, basically.
I heard it was basically like hand assembled. You guys really had trouble scaling it.
It literally didn't have doors or a roof, or any airbags, or an effective cooling system for the battery, and it was not safe. And it was very unreliable. It would break down. It needed to be babied by an engineer, or you couldn't use it. So, but nonetheless, it did get like 0 to 60. I think under 4 seconds, 250-mile range.
It was enough to convince you that it was possible.
I mean, I knew it was possible because if you go from the energy density of lead acid to lithium ion, you've got about a 4x energy density improvement. So if you've got say a 60-mile range with lead acid, you're going to have about a 250-mile range with lithium ion with the same weight. But it was cool to see it in action with AC propulsion, and I tried hard to convince those guys. I really pestered them a lot to going to commercialize the T0, and they just did not want to do it. Weirdly, the thing they wanted to make was an electric Scion, and I'm like, you guys, nobody's gonna pay $70,000 for an electric Scion, okay? That was their idea, $70,000 for an electric Scion. I'm like, this is not gonna work, okay? You will sell like 14 of these things, and I'm like, I have like the email trails of these. Yeah, I mean, I think they're still around. So, in fact, but I even say, listen, even though I think this is the dumbest idea ever, I will fund 1/10 of it if you can find 9 other people. And I think the only other person they could find who would do it was Sergey Brin. So it's like, okay, Sergey and I are the only ones willing to do this, I think. And so they didn't actually get it off the ground. and I said, it's going to fail. But at least it's something. And so then eventually I said, I'm like, listen, if you guys are not going to commercialize the T0, do you mind if I do it? And they're like, no, yeah, that'll be totally fine. Like, okay. So then I was it's like, okay, so I'm go do this with JB, and we'll go create a commercial version of the T0. And then Gage and Kokoni said, well, there's some other people who also want to do it. Do you want to maybe team up with them? He said there were 2 other groups that wanted to do it. And I was like, okay, sure, maybe this is a way that I can have my cake and eat it too, famous last word.
Never works out.
God damn, try and have your cake and eat it too, doesn't it?
This one's gonna be easy.
No, I mean, well, I didn't think it would be easy, but it was like, I thought maybe I can allocate like 20 to 30 hours a week and just work on product engineering, and then other people can do that stuff. But I don't even like doing that stuff anyway. So that just didn't work out. So then Tom Gage said, he said there were 2 teams, but I only ever met one, and that was Eberhard, Topping, and Wright. But like the thing that is really bugs me about them is Eberhard in particular, the worst guy I've ever worked with, and I want to make a note of this. He is literally the worst person I've ever worked with, and I've worked with some real douchebags. Okay. To be number 1 takes a lot. It's not easy. His version of the story is that out of the blue he pitched me on funding his electric car company, and he convinced me to do it. Totally false. Okay, I was like, I'm creating an electric car company. It's like, then Gage said, well, maybe you could team up. And it's like, okay, well, maybe that might be worth doing, and so the company ended up being basically 5 people. This is Wright, Topping, Eberhard, Strabel, and myself, and so it was the 5 of us. And like Topping always tries to write out of the history books, because they had a huge battle and they made me choose which one was going to be CEO. It's Wright or Eberhard, and I talked to JB and I was like, which one? Because I really did not want to be CEO. So they're like, okay, well, both have issues, but maybe Wright has bigger issues than Topping. That's what JB said. So maybe, lesser of evils. I was like, okay, fine. I got to make a choice here, because the 2 of them they refused to be in the same building. So it was like a lot of drama. Tesla has so much drama, and I was like, okay, it's not like I said, like, lesser of 2 evils. So it's like I said, right, sorry, not that I didn't think he had good points, but if I got to pick one, and I was trying not to be CEO, I got to make this rocket company work. So anyway, so then made it was like it's like had to leave then. Anyway, so we got basically we jammed AC propulsion, powertrain, and battery pack into a Lotus Elise. With the first prototyping, like, really just jammed it in, in retrospect, this was not a good idea, because the car ended up weighing like 60% more than an Elise, or on that order, and we didn't have enough volume to put the battery pack, and we had to we invalidated all of the crash tests because the weight distribution was different, it was heavier, so none of the crash tests were valid anymore. We had to redo the airbags, the air conditioner ran off a belt fan, so we didn't have a belt, van, so we had to have a new air conditioning system, so we had to change the HVAC system. And so basically, in the end, only about like, I think 6 or 7% of the parts ended up being in common within the lease. So, and we went through a lot of trouble trying to shoehorn everything in there. And I mean, it's a cute car, but it's 10% too small. It's like, and then the costs ended up being crazy. Yeah, and then there was an audit of the costs of the production cost of the Roadster by one of the investors that joined in 2007, and then they called me up and said, hey, the numbers that Martin is telling you, that everyone's telling you about the Roadster are totally false.
Oh boy.
And I was like, what do you mean? Like, he said, no, we just did an audit. It's more than twice of what he's saying.
Yikes.
Yeah. It's like we would have to sell this car for $250,000 in order to not lose money. I was like, this is insane.
Wow.
So anyway, then we obviously had to fire Eberhard. There was no choice about that. Yeah, and then it turned out he not only had he misled me directly, he'd instructed others to also lie. Yes. When I say like somebody that's like the worst person I ever worked with, it was pretty bad. So, the SpaceX also hadn't gotten to orbit at that time, so I was like, man. So like, okay, I asked, what is the name? Harris. Remember the guy? Blanking on the name.
we brought in a CEO.
It was interim.
Yeah, he ran like a manufacturing company. I mean, he seemed pretty smart. The problem that I found with Tesla was we were a startup in Silicon Valley, building a car that was really manufacturing and materials engineering. And it's really like all the talent was for, you think there was probably talent, in Detroit or Japan. But if you took any of those guys in to run Tesla, they would run it like a car company, and then it would be destroyed.
Well, I had no idea. You can take somebody who's running a giant
You could not
corporation.
take someone from a massive company culture and have them do a startup, and yet you couldn't find anyone in Silicon Valley who knew enough about making cars. And so we kind of found a middle of the road one he was an expert in manufacturing. Flextronics. That's right.
Ex-CEO of Flextronics was an investor. And he agreed to just join as interim CEO. This is 2007.
Yeah. But I mean, Tesla was a company you tried so hard not to be CEO of.
Yes. But the thing is, this is misinterpreted as, if I say that, it's misinterpreted as like I somehow don't love Tesla, which I do. It's just like trying not to go insane. With work.
Yeah, being CEO of a real startup is 80 hours a week. Being CEO of two is 160 hours a week, and there's only 169 hours or something of sleep, 168 hours a week. So, like, you just can't physically do it.
Yeah, I mean, pain level is extreme. So, that's Anyway, let's try quite hard not to be CEO, but it had to be. No choice. That or Tesla would die. So Eberhard was fired in July 2007, and he was at the time we didn't know he'd instructed other people to lie, so we thought he was just, it wasn't as bad. But once he left the building, then it turned out no, he'd actually orchestrated a massive deception, which is quite bad. He also said he came up with the name of Tesla Motors, which is false. That was created by a guy in '95, and moreover, he knows this because we went to great length. We had to buy the trademark.
Yeah, exactly.
So he didn't come up with the name. It was trademarked in '95. So there's a whole bullshit backstory of that. But the guy we almost had to change the name of the company because the guy who owned Tesla Motors wouldn't communicate with us, and so eventually we sent the nicest guy in the company, now who's weirdly Martin's best friend, which I don't understand, but Mark Topping, super nice guy.
I like Mark a lot, actually.
Yeah, you can't not like Mark. It's impossible. He's a super nice guy. So we sent Mark to go sit on the guy's doorstep and not leave until he until he agreed to at least negotiate with us or something. He talked to us, and then we ended up buying the trademark for $75,000.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Was he the one who owned the domain too?
No, that was a whole different nightmare. The main guy, that took us 10 years to buy that Tesla.com domain. Man, and he is, I think, still like a networking engineer at Juniper. So, yeah, and that cost us like $10 million.
Yeah, that was
crazy.
the guy just held out.
Was he just sitting on the domain, or was he using it for something?
It was impossible to. No, he wasn't using it for anything.
Just holding the name. It's like Twitter handle Falcon Heavies would make you just. We're fighting for that one.
Yeah, so man, took us ages to buy the Tesla.com domain. We were gonna have to change the name to be something else, and actually, the lead candidate was Faraday as the name, because Faraday invented the electric motor, and then Tesla perfected the electric motor with the AC induction motor. So if we couldn't do Tesla, we would do Faraday, and then ironically, a competitor was later created called Faraday.
Faraday, yes, a startup.
Yeah.
From China, right?
Yeah. So.
Did you guys have a Faraday logo or anything? Were you that far down the
No. We didn't really even have a Tesla logo until later because there was nothing to sell or anything. So, but in the end, the Tesla logo and the Tesla font was done by me working with basically a little firm. That's why the Tesla and SpaceX. There's some similarities between the fonts, and that's because it's just done by the same people. I spent a lot of time on the Tesla and SpaceX fonts. The little things.
That's cool.
You want to eat that?
Yeah, sure.
Excellent.
I think it's all in the kitchen.
All right.
Awesome.
It would be much easier if the world was flat, or if you're in a flat situation. Well, as soon as things are not flat, and you've got the world has undulations and curves, and then the car can be at any kind of angle, and then if you accelerate or brake, it's actually going to tip a little bit.
Yeah.
You've got sort of pitch and yaw compensation. That's where it gets really tricky.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing just amazing work. It literally just blows my mind every time, like, there's an update. Like, you think it's like, wow, I can't believe it's this good. And then it just gets better.
Like the big one was the faster lane changes. Like as you push the turn signals, like immediately. It's really awesome.
It's so satisfying.
Yeah,
And,
love
you know,
that.
I was kind of just like before, I was like, okay, it's not that good, but it feels good because like I can't believe a computer is doing this. Then we got the faster ones, and I was like, oh my god, it was so bad before. Like, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be able to just do crazy maneuvers, like a high-speed chase, technically, because it's you don't always want to bias the thing to be conservative in any actions that it takes.
Yeah.
But there's quite a significant foundational rewrite in the Tesla Autopilot system that's almost complete. As
Really?
well. Yeah.
And what part of the system? Like perception, like planning, or just like?
It's instead of having planning, perception, image recognition all be separate, they're being combined. So yeah.
I don't even understand what happened with that.
Yeah.
Effectively, like the sort of neural net is absorbing more and more of the problem.
Right.
Beyond simply if you see an image, is this a car or not, or what, it's kind of what do you do from that. 3D labeling is the next big thing, where the car can go through a scene with 8 cameras and kind of paint paint a path, and then you can label the path in 3D. This is probably 2 or 3 order of magnitude improvement in labeling efficiency and labeling accuracy. 2 or 3 orders of improvement in labeling efficiency and significant improvement in labeling accuracy, as opposed to having to label individual frames from 8 cameras at 36 frames a second. You just drive through the scene, rebuild that scene as a 3D thing with. It's just like there might be 1,000 frames that were used to create that scene, and then you can label them all at once.
Is that related to the dojo thing you mentioned at the autonomy day?
No, dojo's for learning, for training the neural net. That's like when you're trying to build a neural net that you ship into the car, dojo speeds that up by hardware accelerating it.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you guys, is that up and running yet, or?
No, it might be. We might have the first one at the end of this year, but next year, I think it's very, very likely next year, maybe this year. But it's essentially meant to absorb massive amounts of video input, and then train against vast amounts of data, so that it can be used in the inference engine in the car. It's just like a human, really. It's like how long does it take you to learn a subject versus do a subject? It's like hard to learn, say, calculus, but once you learned it, then you can, integrate something fast or something. It's like it's really the same basic thing.
Yeah, I mean, that'll just really tighten the feedback loop. Like, at some point, it just gets impossible to catch you guys. And, like, the rest of the people haven't even really, like, started, the rest of the auto industry. And, like, the feedback loop is just getting so tight with autopilot now. It's just, like, makes it a lot easier.
I think they will catch up eventually. Or at least they will catch up to where Tesla is now. I don't know. Things like, for example, we're talking about maps and directions, and how today, computer-based navigation is considered trivial. But back in '95, it was not trivial.
Right. Yeah.
It was considered very hard, and the compute power you had was tiny. So the code had to be super tight. Couldn't have fluffy code if you're trying to execute something on like a 386. It was like very, very puny amount of memory and compute. So now but now maps and directions are easy. I think at some point in the future, it might be a decade or something, then autonomy will seem easy.
Yeah, I mean, it'll obviously be commoditized in the long term.
Yes, it will seem easy in 10 years, but there will be a long stretch there where there'll be vast differences between cars. Well, and the auto industry is used to slow rates of improvement, so there's still not really a car yet that matches the original Model S. Maybe you could argue like take
2012.
maybe.
Yeah.
If you look at like the EPA ratings, it literally is just all below.
Yeah. So that was 2012, and it's 2020. So it's still like pretty hard to get a car. Let's say there's not a car available at the price of the Model S that has the capabilities of the Model S of 2012.
It's kind of exactly what you were talking about with the Elise, where you're like, oh, we'll just put a battery in the Elise, and that kind of showed you like, okay, we really need a ground up electric design.
Yeah.
And the rest of the industry hasn't done that.
The sort of founding principles of Tesla were basically completely wrong. So the premise going in is like, it's not going to be that hard. We'll just take the Lotus Elise, it's a nice lightweight car, and we'll take AC Propulsion's drive unit technology, and we'll put them together, and we'll have an electric car, and it'll be great. It sounds pretty easy.
Yeah.
Except the AC Propulsion technology could not be industrialized. Like, it was like basically handcrafted electronics with an analog motor controller.
Yeah.
And so depending if it was hot or cold, your car would respond differently or not at all. And the motors were hand wound. It was just like, it was like impossible. You cannot scale this technology. You can have like finicky, individually made, super expensive prototypes, but we ended up using none of the AC propulsion technology. So, it's something that looks cool and works well at an individual prototype level, does not necessarily scale. And then like I said, it was like maybe 7% of the parts of the original Roadster were in common with the Lotus Elise. It would have been way easier if we started from a blank slate. It would have been a better car. But I think like the real test of any given startup is how well does it respond to adversity and adapt and just figure it out. So like most things are just, when they start out, they don't make a lot of sense. But then as long as you adapt quickly, then you can make the company work. If you say like sort of Confinity, doing Palm Pilot tokens with an infrared port made no sense, but they adapted quickly to online payments. That was key. At X.com was originally going to bite off way more than it could chew by trying to do all the banking services, and that also focused on payments. It's like, if we do all these banking things, we're going to need a banking license. The banking license is going to slow us down. We're just focused on payments, so we can just get a payment, license from the state, and it's just like $50 or something. You can be a money transmitter, literally. And so you just got to adapt quickly.
You kind of need to be naive, though. If you had known as much about manufacturing, you might not have done it.
Yeah. So it would have been difficult to. I guess if you know the outcome's going to be good in the end, sure. It sort of depends on how much foreknowledge do you have about it. Manufacturing is insanely difficult. It's underappreciated in its difficulty.
Yeah, no, that's totally true.
Yeah. Even making the Roadster, which we only like peak made about 600 Roadsters in a year. But call it like 10 a week or something like that, 10 or 12 a week. So, if 2 got made in a day, that was a big day. And Tesla's making over 1,000 cars a day now.
What I find amazing is from start to finish, a car is made in 48 hours.
Yeah, depending on what counts, start to finish.
Yeah, it depends. But you can see the rolled aluminum in one section of the factory, and you can see the cars coming out the other end, and it really is astounding. And cars have been built for a long time, but this is just astounding. It's still, when you don't appreciate when you're driving a car how much goes into the level of detail, the 10,000 parts that come together, the shaping of everything.
10,000 unique parts.
Unique parts.
Wow. The pack alone is several thousand cells.
And it all comes together with people that are skilled, but skills are changing as things become a little bit. There's more autonomy, but it's not autonomy is not perfect. So you do need to have a lot of people there, and these cars have to be perfect. I mean, it's just
given how much complexity there is in a car, it's remarkable that they cost as little as they do. There's so much that's in a car.
So what sort of processes do you remove, like, first principles type thing approach from the Elise to like the Model S? Like, was it a massive jump there?
Yeah, I mean, it's gigantic.
Yeah.
Tesla had never made a car, made a full car before. Lotus made the non-powertrain portion of the Roadster, and then Tesla built the battery pack, motor, power electronics, charger, and then put it all together at the end. And that final assembly was actually at an old Ford dealership in Menlo Park. That was, you can see some of the stuff in Revenge of the Electric Car.
Yeah, I've seen
Great
that book.
movie.
Yeah, it's great.
It just gives you crazy perspective to look back on it.
Crazy.
We need a third one.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of having a car, like a car assembly tiny plant in Menlo Park of all places. And that was just because we managed to sublease the Ford dealership that closed down, and we managed to get it like this deal from Stanford, because the Stanford was going to redevelop it, and we figured they'd probably take it way longer than they expected to redevelop it. So we said, well, you're not bringing it to anyone. Like, can we pay you like 50 cents a square foot, and you can kick us out whenever you want? And it was this actually huge dealership, and it had enough room to do final assembly of the cars. So we just did final assembly of the cars there.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and one of the most absurd places to build cars on earth is Menlo Park.
So no test track or anything, just the road outside or something.
Yeah. Well, in fact, we'd actually, the early roasters were very unreliable, so we'd generally put about 50 miles of just normal driving.
Oh,
so just
wow.
drive around the Bay Area with somebody following you.
You must have got some crazy looks from people, right? It's like, what is that?
Yeah. But we'd put 50 miles in each one of those cars because they just have a lot of things that would break down in the first 50 miles. And then, battery production was in San Carlos. Yeah. So, man, there's just a lot of detail and all that. But going from the Roadster to Model S was a massive leap, because the Model S is quite a sophisticated sedan where Tesla built the whole thing as opposed to just building the powertrain. And, so... competing against like Mercedes, BMW, Audi type thing. So that was a massive leap of difficulty. We did get the NUMMI plant, but really that just meant we got a box.
Yeah.
Because they stripped the plant of all the great equipment. The only equipment that Toyota and GM left behind was the stuff that they could not use anywhere else.
Wow.
So they only left the most junky, broken pieces of equipment behind. We managed to use some of it, but yeah, in the paint shop. I mean, some of the things were literally not even worth the scrap value. so it was like not worth it to call the scrap metal dealer.
What'd you do with it then?
We made a lot of those things work.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, plastic injection molding machines, and we just made them work.
Wow.
And the paint robots, we mostly made those work. The assembly, the body production line had to be made new because there was just nothing. So we made the body production line for Model S was created from scratch. And it worked out, but it was very difficult. It was also in the beginning, the top suppliers would not work with us, or we would get like their D team. Because like who wants, if they got all these customers, like they got the big car companies, they got like Toyota, or they got Audi, BMW, Ford as customers, and a startup. Who now you're in this Laplace position? Which team are you going to assign to this startup that everyone says is going bankrupt? You're going to assign the interns and rejects. Okay, it's not going to be your top team.
We have the same thing with our
Your top team's going to go to like Toyota, your big customers, the top team. So we would get the worst team usually at the supplier company, if the supplier would even work with us.
You think that influenced you to vertically integrate more?
It was vertically integrate or die.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we tried outsourcing. The battery production originally was going to be made at this place that made, I think, barbecue grills in Thailand.
I read that story.
Yeah, and I was like, man, they have no idea how to make a battery, and I was like, this is crazy. We're moving it to back to our headquarters in St. Carlos, and we're just going to make it here because. Once there's a massive amount of work going from prototype to production, and you need a fast feedback loop with engineering. And if that feedback loop is all the way out in Thailand, it's just no way. It's not like if you have an existing production line that you already know how to make it in volume, that you can move. But you cannot create a production line that never existed that's super far away from where the engineers are. It's a recipe for disaster. And also the cells are coming from Japan, so they go from Japan, they go to Thailand, they go through customs, they'll be waiting, then they'd be going to a battery pack, then that battery pack will be sent to England, then Lotus. These are all things that got changed. But the supply chain, like let's say that there's a problem with the cells, you'd only if the supply chain was so long that you'd only find out that it didn't work 5 months later.
Yikes.
Yeah, and then you have 5 months of scrap inventory. So this is a recipe for a disaster. So that got moved to St. Carlos. Cells shipped directly to St. Carlos. Put it in a module. Figure out why the module's not working. Fix it. Maybe put it into a pack. Like the original reason why the roadster battery pack had, I think it was like 16 sort of blades, was if modules, if one of them didn't work, you could pull it out and put another one in. Because that happened. So you don't really
We actually did a whole podcast on this.
Well, our goal is to minimize service costs.
Yeah.
Whereas the other car companies, this is, I wouldn't say the goal is to maximize service costs, but it's certainly not to minimize it.
Well, car companies also have two different businesses. There's the dealerships where their business is actually just service, I don't think it's anyone's surprise that people don't like going to their dealer. I mean, it's like it's because their incentives are actually not aligned with the customer's incentives. Their goal is to bring you back as often as possible.
Yeah, the dealerships incentives are also misaligned with the car companies during the warranty period, because the car company has to pay for the warranty, the service during warranty. So it's that they have a conflict of economic conflict of interests. The car companies cover the warranty costs, but the dealership makes profit on the servicing. So they want to maximize servicing even during the warranty period.
Yeah, it's almost like the economic factors you just mentioned have created like complacency where there is no innovation because, nobody can just start a car company.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's like Schumpeter's creative destruction. There's like, innovation tends to come from new entrants to an industry. So if an industry has formed an oligopoly or something like that, then the forcing function is weak for innovation, because innovation tends to come from new entrants. Yeah, so this is the problem with rockets. There's not a lot of new entrants, so innovation forcing function is weak.
But it's encouraging to see rocket booster land.
Yeah.
And everyone's all like, wow, we can innovate maybe.
Yeah, it's actually been surprising how little innovation there's been and despite SpaceX showing reusable rockets and landing and reflying these rockets many times, and we're like, come on, just copy it or something.
Same with Tesla. I mean, tech works. Just do the same thing.
Didn't Chinese space companies started putting grid fins on their rockets?
I think there's some Chinese rockets that have launched with grid fins. Well, you can really use any kind of fin. Grid fins just are more predictable across a wide range of speeds. So from hypersonic through supersonic, transonic, subsonic, it's quite easy to predict the behavior of a grid fin, and the center of pressure of a grid fin doesn't change that much. Whereas if you have a fin like a wing-looking thing, you'll see quite a big change in where the center of pressure is across a wide Mach regime. Yeah, either one would work. The shuttle didn't have grid fins.
What do you think about Rocket Lab's approach of trying to use a helicopter to recover the first stage?
I think that's going to be harder than it seems.
Yeah, I think so.
But their booster is quite small. So the issue with helicopters is you run into a max load problem. Like the lifting capability of helicopters is not that great, and that lifting capability drops with altitude. And then the range of a helicopter is also not that great. So then you end up having to have the helicopter on a ship, and then if in heavy weather conditions you can't take off. So that you have to be, your weather constraints at the launch point and the catch point are end up limiting your launch availability. Mm-hmm. And then you got to. It's dangerous. You've got somebody in a helicopter with your pilots trying to catch this thing coming out of the sky. It
doesn't sound too sane.
There's certainly the potential for something to go wrong. Whereas if you have a drone ship, if it smashes into the drone ship, it's not a big deal. If it smashes into a helicopter, that's a big deal.
Sure.
Yeah. So. Overall, I've been, that said, I've been pretty impressed with Rocket Lab, and they're making a go of it, and they're going to do reusability, which is important. It's fundamental.
Do you guys still see yourself doing that city to city travel in 30 minutes one day?
That would be awesome.
I want to do it's more Starship.
Yeah, I think that can, for sure, can be done. Yeah, for sure, can be done. It is loud. It's really a noise is the biggest concern there. Both taking off and landing. When it comes in for landing, that sonic boom is loud. It's like, yeah, there's actually 2 sonic booms. So it sounds like somebody just discharged a double barrel shotgun in your backyard. So it's not like it's breaking windows or anything, but it's like, it'd be pretty annoying if it's happening on a regular basis. That's basically what it amounts to. So then you have to do it offshore. So I think we'll do, but can it be done? Definitely. And it's the fastest way to get anywhere based on known physics. So, and I think the economics can be made to work as well, so that it would be competitive with international air travel.
It'd be exciting.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
cheap? Wow. I can't wait for that. I travel a lot, like to Asia, like minimum like 12 hours to 14 hours.
Sure.
Yeah.
Will you try to keep most of the launches around the equator, or would it matter? Like,
It doesn't matter a ton. It matters if you're going east to, if you launch east, you have the advantage of the Earth's rotation. The closer you are to the equator, the more you can take advantage of Earth's rotation. If you fly west, you're actually counteracting Earth's rotation, so the delta velocity that you need is higher. But you can go in either direction. I think one of our upcoming launches is actually a retrograde flight. So it's going to go against the Earth's rotation.
that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah.
But if Starship is gonna launch so many times a day, how are you gonna produce all these Raptors? Because like, we've been touring the SpaceX factory in Hawthorne, and you're making them by hand, right? Are you gonna automate any of this?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's being made by hand. Being assembled by hand, maybe, but
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry.
we have a lot of metal printers. We have a whole
Yeah, that's
Those
incredible.
3D printers are crazy.
3D metal printing. Wow.
yeah.
Love it.
I mean, I think SpaceX is pushing the envelope of metal printing more than anyone else. At least that's what the splash tell us. But we also have a foundry. So
cool.
we do casting of exotic parts for a Raptor. We have a lot of CNC machines. It's a very complicated engine to build. A Merlin looks like a toy relative to Raptor. It's very simple. But we're going to make a lot of Raptors and Starships.
So are they all going to be made in the States then?
Yes,
Okay, they'd have to be. But
they have to be.
yeah.
Yeah, we can get simple ingredients from outside the U.S., but other than that, we're not allowed to transmit any sort of
NASA IP.
Yeah, NASA. Yeah.
anything that like is a sophisticated element of a rocket engine. We're not allowed to transfer out the U.S. or rockety stuff is the weapons technology. So
So just a Starship, when it's assembled, will fly there and come back.
So
technically, there's a lot of rockets at the bottom of the ocean that we push out, and they have.
This is true.
So if your city-to-city rocket travel works, does that mean Tesla doesn't need to build an electric airplane?
Man, building an electric airplane has a lot of difficulty associated with that.
Or what about the VTOL jet?
There's a lot of difficulty associated with that. I gotta make sure. Well, it takes a massive amount of effort to do any one of these things, so you can't do them all. It's not possible. Say, how are you allocate the resources? What's the best thing to do? Making a VTOL jet can definitely be done. Doing electric aircraft for sure. I mean, all transport will go electric except for rockets. Yeah, everything.
I guess why it seems exciting is because if Tesla's leading in energy density and battery technology, then the logical next step is like, if somebody's going to build an electric airplane, it's the company with the best, lightest, most efficient batteries, right?
Yeah, it's hard to, it's an entirely different regulatory regime. There aren't any car companies that are also aircraft companies. So why don't they just make aircraft?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny. There was like some conspiracy theories on Twitter because on Instagram, Tesla's category, it said automotive, and then somehow aircrafts and boats got added.
Like at the Cybertruck event, they changed it.
They're making a boat or an airplane.
This is like your Wikipedia.
I think it's incredibly hard to bring an aircraft to production and meet all of the regulatory requirements worldwide. It's a very difficult thing. So it's not like it's something that could just be done. We would have to not do a bunch of other things. It's not like there's like a ton of unallocated resources at Tesla and like, oh, what should we do now? It's like a constant resource starvation. So they're just like, why don't you do this other thing? Okay, we're starving for resources. Then what do we not do?
Well, it seems like that's what's so exciting is now that the business is kind of taken this next step, the resource like starve is kind of changing, or hopefully slowly changing.
I mean, an airplane, like maybe another car or something. It's not.
Yeah, not necessarily an airplane, but just in general, it seems like the financial help means you can spend more on R&D, you can invest more. Like
that's not how it works. It's not like if you just had more money, you could spend it effectively in R&D. But if there was a factory producing excellent engineers, that would be true. Where is this factory? It doesn't exist. So it's incredibly difficult to find the right talent, integrate them into an organization, and have it work effectively. It's not a money thing. It's just hard to find. There's just a small number of people,
More engineers?
Especially, there's just a fundamental limitation on exceptional engineers. There's just not that many.
So given like these constraints and all the things you have to do, could you tell us like a little bit about your thinking on how you prioritize?
And the prioritizing has usually been out of desperation, not choice. It's not like, oh, let's sit back and how should we spend these resources? This damn thing isn't going to work. If we don't make it work, we're going to go bankrupt. And then so we better make it work. The Model 3 program, there were so many mistakes that were made with the Model 3 program that the entire company had to be devoted to fixing the Model 3 production system. So, we took everyone off solar, almost everyone off battery pack, power pack, and that kind of thing. Anyone who was working on, Roadster, Semi, everyone stopped doing that, work on Model 3, or there won't be any Tesla.
Yeah. It's kind of amazing. You really bet the whole company to get to this next level, but I have a Model 3. I couldn't afford a Model S, so like I'm very thankful that you guys decided to bet the whole company.
There was no choice. It's like either you gotta get to volume. It's a chicken and egg situation. You can't make the car at an affordable price unless you have high volume. Unless you have high volume, you can't get an affordable price. So now what do you do?
Yeah.
How do you bootstrap this thing? You basically just got to take a giant flying leap at high volume and hope you get to grab a cliff at ledge with your fingertips.
Yeah, it seems like
it's like that Indiana Jones where you're like running down the thing, and here's what it actually feels like. It's like that. What Temple of Doom, whatever, where it's like there's a damn boulder chasing you down. Okay, and it's a big hole in the ground.
Can you make that game?
And you're gonna jump across the hole in the ground, and if you slow down, the boulder's gonna crush you. This is what it feels like. It's like, what else we shall do? It's like boulder, hole in the ground, and then jump across, or you're gonna die. So that's basically. or get the situation. Like at this point, maybe we could say like, okay, what shall we do at this point? The biggest problem we have to solve right now is just having production on each continent, because it's insane to be making cars in California, shipping them to Europe and Asia. This is, I mean, as it is, making cars in the Bay Area is pretty absurd. And then you also got to ship those cars half around the world. So you got all this finished goods inventory on the water. That's a very high capital carrying cost. And you can finance part of it, but not all of it. So, then you got the transport costs, you got tariffs, you got, every time a car gets loaded or unloaded, there's some potential for damage. It's not zero, so it just creates a lot of cost, and then it's hard to manage. The factory complexity in California is amplified because you've got several different regulatory regimes. So you're building, it seems like you're building Model 3, but you're actually building several versions of a Model 3 depending upon whether it's going to China, Japan, Australia, Europe. Then you got goddamn right-hand drive. Okay. It's like every night everything's gonna go. Some random bureaucratic decision 100 years ago. Right-hand drive, left-hand drive. This is a mega pain in the ass. Yeah, absolutely. And all these different languages, you can't have like warning labels in English if they don't speak English. It's like, I don't know what it means. So there's stickers all over the place for 17 different languages or whatever it is, and that's all in one factory. So the complexity amplifies the difficulty of manufacturing, and then you kind of get into the cycle where in the first month in the quarter, or let's say first 6 weeks in the quarter, you build cars for Europe and Asia, and you get them on the boats. And then for the next, say, 3 weeks, you build cars for the East Coast of the US, or North America. And then the final 3 weeks, you build cars for the West Coast. So the deliveries early in the quarter look very, very low, and they spike exponentially at the end, because basically all the cars arrive at the customers at the end of the quarter. And then they were like, then we'll have these conversations. We've got to get out of this wave. And they're like, well, they'll punish us very badly if we get out of the wave because the financials will look horrible.
Yeah.
So then we're like, okay, we'll do the wave again. And so now we've got a factory in Shanghai that that'll go a long way towards alleviating the complexity and the cost. We'll have far fewer goods that we need to finance that are on boats. Once we get the factory going in Berlin, or Brandenburg technically, which is close to Berlin, then this massively reduces the complexity of production and reduces the fundamental cost of the vehicle. So this will really de-stress the company a lot.
So local production will break the wave.
Local production will break the wave. I mean, just like we've had a number of times that headlights have come up as an issue. It's crazy. We've had to ship cars to Europe many times where the supplier of the headlights for the EU headlights couldn't match rate, or made them wrong or something, and then so we have to make cars with US headlights, ship them to Europe, then ship a bunch of EU headlights to Europe, change them in the port because they're not allowed to exit the port until they have the EU headlight.
Oh my God.
So that was the port problems we would see.
That's one of the many port problems.
Wow.
So I first quarter last year was a tragedy of errors. It's not a comedy, but a tragedy. Belgium went on strike, right? And you're like, what do you mean Belgium's on strike? I'm like, yeah. Well, our cars are coming into Zeebrugge, and we're like, okay, now what do we do? Nothing. Just cars are stuck. Because okay, but then they're scheduled to go off strike on this other day, and like, okay, so then we can move things. Great. It's just so many things. And cars got stuck in the port of Shanghai because they had the wrong sticker.
Oh my god.
Yeah, they put the wrong
Did the sticker man?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. I know that. It's better off like just made it in China. And sell it to
Absolutely,
China.
for sure.
Like
Totally agree.
you don't have to spend like 2 weeks, 3 weeks on the ocean, go there and wrong sticker, and you have to wait and replace.
People don't appreciate Giga Shanghai yet completely.
Not until recently.
Not
Not yet. I don't think people have realized it.
Not fully.
It's
but-
extremely important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these like shipping times are like technically it's possible if everything goes right, you can get the car there in 2 weeks, but the ships don't leave every single day, and then you also have to queue. You can't just instantly load the cars. So the cars, you have to like send like 2,000 cars to a lot in like Port Oakland or Port San Francisco, accumulate the cars, then they get moved to another place, then they get loaded onto the ship one at a time.
Oh my god.
And then finally the ship leaves, and then like sometimes the ship has problems.
Yes.
And like there's storms or something.
Storm and custom.
Yeah, no, like it's
You
not
have
like
to go through everything.
there's so much drama. Then there's
Too many ways to go wrong. Like,
so yeah, then like the ship's engine broke down, it's just like it's stuck somewhere. and yeah,
but it's great. Like right now, like everything roll off the production line, go directly to the delivery
that's
center.
great.
It's wonderful. So I have another question. It's like, from your perspective, how do Chinese public perceive EV?
Well, China is very pro EV, and it's the biggest EV market in the world. I think it's like half of all the EVs are made and bought in China.
Yeah,
Something like
as
that.
of right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So now China sort of subsidies for EVs have dropped considerably, so that did cause a reduction.
Helps a lot. Yeah.
Well, the EV incentives were very high in China,
Yeah.
and now they're much less.
Much
They're
less.
like a third of what they used to be, or less.
Yes.
So that's caused some decline in demand, as one would expect. But China is still the biggest market for EVs in the world, so I think they're very positively received.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So talking about the incentives, because I know the price, there was a small price reduction, right, in the Chinese Model 3, and then the subsidies they're balanced, so it's actually not any impact on Tesla in the profit, right?
No, I don't think so. Well, I think obviously depending on what percentage of the car is made in China, the parts that are made in China are not subject to a tariff, so that's certainly helpful. We also save on logistics, and generally we found that locally sourced parts in China cost less than in the US or Europe. So this is all pretty helpful. Also, the Tesla got added to the purchase tax exemption, which all the other. This is. I'm not sure if people realize just how much of an uphill battle Tesla's had to sell cars in China. It's been really, we had basically no access to any of the subsidies, and we paid a tariff, and we had to ship the cars over, and every single thing was set against Tesla, and still we made progress and did decently well. So I think that it will be a much better situation with local production, not having to do shipping and tariffs, and being able to have lower cost local sourcing of components. So it make a big difference, I think.
Is that your victory dance when you broke ground in China?
Yeah,
that's great.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Huge.
Just in terms of just fundamental economics, it kind of makes sense that making cars on the continent where they are bought will be a lot more efficient than making them in California and shipping them around the world. Yeah.
And you can get paid for the cars before paying your suppliers, which seems to not be the case if you're shipping around the world.
Right.
And that could be a huge like friction on the whole kind of cash flow situation, or it has been.
For sure, it will sure make a big difference on cash flow because it's there's just no way to get the cars, especially in Europe, but even China, to get them to customers, before we have to pay suppliers. So if you're a rapidly growing company, it's night and day if you get paid by your customers before you have to pay your suppliers, like night and day. Because then the faster you grow, the better your cash position is. But if it's the other way around, where you have to pay your suppliers before you get paid by customers, then the faster you grow, the faster your cash position drops.
Yes, drop. Yes, because you're going to spend more money to make it more
so
cost.
growth actually causes you to auger into the ground in a situation like that. Now, at Tesla, we had a mixture of both things, where we had a lot of customers in California, and that's fast. For sure, we would get paid by customers faster than we would have to pay suppliers. But then for cars going to Europe and Asia, it's the other way around, So we would have to pay suppliers before we got paid by customers. And now we could offset some of that with the asset-backed line, which was pretty helpful, but only some of it, not all of it. So the fundamental financial health for sure improves dramatically by just having a factory on the continent. Okay, we're not talking next door, but it's just how many oceans. Especially Europe was logistically super hard because we're on the West Coast. If we're on the East Coast, then China would be much harder. But if you're on the West Coast, Europe's much harder because you've got to go through the Panama Canal, or even worse, around Tierra del Fuego. Because sometimes the Panama Canal get backed up, and this friggin' ship is going to the Antarctic. It's like you just go to the end, and it's stormy as hell. So you got to send a ship around Chile? Are you kidding? In the middle of crazy storms, and then back up all the way, and then it is so. Oh my god. So logistic nightmare. It'd be great to just have it not get on a boat and cross the Pacific and Atlantic and that kind of thing.
So maybe similar to Vincent's question, Ole, what's the biggest advantage in choosing Berlin compared to other European countries?
Berlin has the best nightclubs.
That's true. Have you been?
I went to Bergheim once.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit. That's cool.
Yeah, so several years ago. Well, no, I don't know. I mean, we looked at a lot of different locations, and I sort of, I don't know. We could have put it in a lot of locations. We needed to move quickly, and actually this place, it's like whatever, 30 minutes to the outskirts of Berlin, technically in Brandenburg. It actually was a location that BMW was going to put a plant there. So a ton of the environmental work and all of the permits and stuff had already been done, and then for some reason BMW chose a different location. But there's I guess something on the order of a year's worth of environmental paperwork and stuff that's been done on that location for an auto plant.
Awesome.
So that's it made it one of the quickest places to get going. And generally the government, local and state government, was very supportive. So I went there, and it's like, okay, this seems like some pretty good vibes, this place. So it's a lovely part of this lovely place, and there's an opportunity for, it's close enough to Berlin that, say, young people could still live in an apartment in Berlin and commute to the factory. It's right, there's a train station. They actually moved the train station. It's a small train station, but they're going to move the train station to where you can literally get off the train and be right at the Giga Balloon.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. That's perfect.
You could literally just pop right off, and you just walk.
Wow.
You don't need a bicycle. So then it's like, okay, this is pretty cool. And so young people could be in Berlin, in Parliament, and still work at Berlin. But if you want to have more of a family situation, backyard, there's affordable housing available with houses with yards and stuff that aren't too expensive. So it seems like a good combination of factors. A lot of talent in the area. So it sounds cool to go Berlin. It does sound like some cool nightclub, I think. You could definitely have a cool nightclub that was cooled out. People are like, yeah, that sounds good. Giga Shanghai too. Sounds pretty cool. Pretty
We
fun.
should party in Giga Shanghai.
Yeah, we should have like a rave cave in the. Giga
So that's
Bar.
space around the factory side.
Yeah,
But you should have like your own nightclub.
yeah. I think that'd be who doesn't know? Who doesn't? We should do that. I feel like I'd go for sure work at a company that's got the nightclub. That sounds way more fun.
Didn't you want to put a roller coaster into the Fremont factory?
Yeah.
You still gonna do that?
I mean, I think that would be pretty fun to do. Yeah. I think we could just like do, just basically have like, we just needed a rail that can support like a modified Teslas, and then
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Can you imagine a plaid?
yeah, just like zip around and
Around the factory in like 5 seconds.
Tours would be booked for months.
Yeah, we should get in right now. Awesome.
yeah, we kind of actually in various parts of the factory we have vehicle conveyance systems. They just don't move that fast, but they're kind of like roller coasters that
You
move
can speed
slowly.
them up.
Yeah, you speed them up. Exactly. So but yeah, overall I'm feeling pretty. I don't want to tempt fate or anything, but feeling pretty good about where things are headed. I think this is a lot of good things. Model Y coming out this year, and some exciting announcements about batteries. A lot of progress in autopilot. Yeah. And so Berlin, Giga Berlin, and then making progress on some of the new vehicle developments. And the solar glass roof, getting that rolled out.
The Cybertruck got received really well, I think.
Yeah.
Did you expect that many orders?
Not really.
It's amazing.
When I first saw the Cybertruck in Franz's design studio, I mean, Elon had told me that this was a daring design. Although I think you're the most excited about this design than any design.
Yeah, I think it's our best product ever.
Yeah, and I saw it. I was just taken aback, and not by the design so much, by the pure aggression that the truck. You stand in front of it, and you're like, okay, I'm afraid. It really is like a badass truck.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like a lot of reasons why people buy pickup trucks, in the U.S. is like because it's like the most badass truck. Like which one's the toughest truck, and it's like what's tougher than a truck? A tank. Like a tank from the future. So it's like
My niece in Cochrane, which is near Calgary, she's a dirt bike rider champion, and already 5 Cybertrucks were ordered just the day.
5 Cybertrucks.
Because
Just in case the first 4 are busy.
yeah, 5 of her friends ordered.
She's done her.
And she's also pretty good.
yeah, absolutely.
They just love it.
Yeah, it's literally like how you out tough a truck. You just make a futuristic armored personnel carrier, and that's tougher than a truck.
And I feel like autonomy will probably be very mature by the time it ships too.
For sure.
So how many Cybertruck orders do we have right here?
Raise your hand.
I got one.
Two?
I ordered 3.
I mean, it's gonna be pretty special and not look like the other things. So Yeah.
It looks so cool. Like the first time I showed it to my son, it's like, Daddy, this is something from Alien. This is his first impression.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, it is.
That's how it was designed. It was just like, what's the, you know, let's make a futuristic armored personnel carrier, you know. And so the inspiration board was like literally like, you know, Blade Runner, you know, like sort of Mad Max, Back to the Future, you know, Aliens, you know, like, yeah. So that's why it looks like that.
like the pre-order number is amazing.
Well, it's got to be over like 400,000 now, right?
I think way more.
I think it was just so risky, and it just like at first people were like, even people who like were hardcore fans were like, oh, when I first rolled out, and then people are like, you know what?
Wait a minute, like,
this is kind of amazing. I want this.
You could see it like there was like in person. You could see it happening really fast.
it's
Like
scrolling.
the reaction, and then the processing, and then you're seeing all the features, and then the range and the price. Those are the compelling things that really
Scrolling.
like just hit everybody.
Yeah, the
really.
40,000 was the biggest shock.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, people are going to be buying
And
this.
that range too.
Yeah.
Like it's just
No,
it was
actually, the
beyond.
69,500 miles with 2.9 seconds. Like, come on, like, dude, you have to get it. No way. It's
Well, Sid
amazing.
Mead loved it too, right?
He did actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the last things he said actually.
That's, yeah.
Did he have a drive in it?
And no, he saw pictures of it, but I think he was not. Obviously, he died recently, so he didn't. He saw pictures and he said, "Yeah, that's great." And he says, "Send us a note, like he loves it." You know.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So, but you know, you want to have these things that inspire people. It feels different, not like everything else is like the same. It's like variations on the same theme. You want to have something different. But you felt like how many? I wasn't sure if nobody would buy it or a lot of people would buy it. It just wasn't, you know, I don't know. But you know, I just told team like, listen, if nobody wants to buy this, we can always make one that looks like the other trucks. That's not like
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just try it and see how
say
people
like,
feel.
okay, it was a. You know, could say, okay, it was a weird failure, but now, now we'll make one that looks just like the others, and there you go. So,
It seems to have captured the whole world though, like elevated Tesla in the cultural zeitgeist in a way that like is so exciting. Like the Travis Scott music video already happened. Like that was so. I was waiting for the first music video, and I was like,
advertising.
yeah, so awesome.
Really cool.
yeah, it's going to be hard to make that, by the way. So it's not, because it's a different architecture. It's an exoskeleton architecture, so there isn't any cars out there that have an exoskeleton architecture. So you got to rethink how all the internals of the car are done, so that you can use the external shell as a load-bearing structure instead of just basically thin sheet metal that is effectively just there for aerodynamic reasons. So you could take the external what's called the A-class surfaces off most cars and still drive around you'd lose almost no structural value. They usually go very, very thin sheet metal, so it's all endoskeleton. So there'll be some challenges building that.
It's a Starships 30. It's a Starships. Yeah.
You can use the same steel as the ship.
Yeah, I'd love one of those limited quantity ones.
Oh, I know.
Sure,
Like
sweet.
Tim had shouted out.
Yeah, Tim had asked about that. Everyday astronaut.
Yeah,
He's a cool guy.
he's a cool guy. He really knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he does.
So yeah, so there's a lot of a lot of good things. There'll undoubtedly be some setbacks along the way, but it's looking pretty good.
Should we do some closing thoughts?
I just remember when I got my Model 3, it was like a difficult time in my life, and it made it easier. And, you don't have to buy gas, car drives you around. It just makes your life better. All of our lives in these little ways, like all this struggle you do, it really makes things better and just makes you hopeful and inspired. And, I just can't thank you and the whole Tesla team and enough for all the love you put into the car. And every day it's just happy because I have a Model 3.
That's cool. I'm glad you like it. That's our goal. Our goal is to you know, maximize the, make people like really touch people's heart, you know, with the product. And it's I think like too many of these companies out there that design these things, whether it's sort of a spreadsheet and sort of marketing surveys and that kind of thing, without saying, do you love it? You know,
Yeah, do you love the
actually like the product that you're making? Do you
It
love
touched my heart very much.
Right.
I'd like to thank you for this chance, like doing interview with all of us. And as a shareholder and Model 3 owner, I remember like one time you tweet about your money is first in and will be last out.
Yeah.
I was really touched to see that tweet. I think it's like years ago.
Sure.
Like right after one of the shareholder meeting. I was like which CEO will do this, you know? And like after I bought my Model 3, I more believed to the company. Like I ordered a Model Y and then 2 Cybertruck. I was like, I'm a Porsche fans before, and then right now like
He was gonna get a Taycan until he saw the range.
yeah, I was thinking to get a Taycan, like why not, like give it a try. But
Sure.
when you look at the spec, the range turned me off. Like
Yeah.
It's obsolete already.
201, like who's gonna buy it?
For 150K. So
Just not talk about money, just talk about range itself. The spec, it's like it's not there yet.
Yeah.
So with like 150K plus, like nobody gonna buy it. Yeah. So thank you, Elon, and
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you very much.
Well, yeah. Well, thanks you guys for your support. It really makes a difference. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't own Tesla, so hopefully I will.
you ordered a Cybertruck though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally true.
Yeah.
And you're shareholder.
but
Are you
it's-
still in college?
Yeah. So yeah, I gotta save up.
Okay.
But I will buy one, and I've got a Cybertruck, like you said.
Yeah.
But like I've made so many great memories just like through these cars. Like I've met all you guys through Tesla. And this is like amazing, just like what kind of community just is created through products that you love. And I think that really means a lot. Like I think I've never seen people being so excited about a product before.
Yeah.
Or like having this whole family feeling. It's really cool. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say congrats first of all, because I feel like this has been, it's kind of like a feel good moment for Tesla, all that's happening.
Yeah.
Obviously, thank you, because like you've inspired all of us, and I think there's not many things in the world that like people get pumped about that are positive about the future. Like I really feel like we need that now, and so Tesla like bringing us all together has been really awesome and really much needed, I think.
Great. This is really cool.
I think I'd have to agree with what Gally said. Just where Tesla's going, you have a car that's actually making a difference with the clean energy, changing the earth, cleaning things up. I mean, it made me excited to see. And you're so efficient, and you actually get things the way you do it. You just, I don't know, you get it done. and I trust you, and I trust the company, and it's I don't know, it's such a passion. It's amazing. I don't know. I can't get the words out.
We're sometimes a little late, but we get it done in the end.
Yeah.
Always deliver.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for your support.
Well, I just want to say, like, how I described this podcast, like it kind of just grew out grassroots, right? And I look at you as also part of the community. You're as much third row as all of us, right? So I mean, I'm really grateful you were able to come on this and also tell the story.
Absolutely.
Show more people. I hope we can do it again too, because I'm sure there's going to be
Sure.
things that come up that we want to set the record straight to,
Yeah.
and maybe have some celebrations too. So
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
there's a lot of exciting things. Probably, like I said, probably some, disasters and drama along the way. It's never 100% good.
we'll
but,
be there to help. So
it's always good to get feedback. Like, if you're in my position, what would you do? Like a lot of times, like I just don't know if something's wrong. I just don't even know it's wrong. I have to learn it somehow, and then I could try to figure out, okay, how do we deal with all these different issues? Scaling service effectively is very difficult, for example, and so that's like it's like a mundane thing, but it's very important.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the mobile service is incredible. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on my 5th Tesla now,
Yeah.
Not the last, because I just keep upgrading them.
Yeah.
Because the last one, I have a P100D Model S, which is outside right there, and I have I got the license plate Get Tesla.
Yeah.
I thought, if you want it, I would love to give it to you. So thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cool. Elon, can you sign my Model 3?
Sure.
Oh yeah, and my Model S too.
All right, cool.
Welcome to the Third Row Tesla podcast. My name is Safian Farval, and today we have a very special guest. But before I introduce our special guest, I'm going to go through and introduce our crew. So our regular Third Row Tesla podcast crew. So today we have Omar Kazi, Tesla Truth.
Boom.
And we have Kristen from
Hi.
K10. Thank you. And we got Vincent Yu from Tasmanian.
Hi.
All right, great. And then we got Galileo Russell from Hyperchange.
What up, third row?
And then we got Viv, who's Falcon Heavy.
Hey.
Great. All right, Omar, do you want to introduce our guest?
Please welcome the inventor of the car fart, Elon Musk.
Thank you. Thank you. Please put that on my gravestone.
Love it.
So yeah, it's kind of crazy that we're actually all here, and thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome.
We're all Tesla customers, fans, and it's just really good that it's finally happening. And I remember that I was looking at your Wikipedia tweet that it's like this bizarre fictionalized version of reality,
Yeah.
and I replied to him like, why don't you come on a podcast and like tell your fictionalized version of reality?
Sure, exactly. Until my fictionalized version.
And you replied, okay, sure. And I was kind of like taken by surprise by that. And you know, the way you engage and listen to your customers online, it's like I've never seen anything like that from, you know, the CEO of a public company or
Sure.
any executive. So can you tell us a little bit where that came from, why you communicate directly instead of like having this PR strategy that most companies have?
Sure. Well, I mean, it started out. I actually had one of the very first Twitter accounts, like when it was like less than 10,000 people, and then everyone was tweeting at me like what kind of latte they had at Starbucks, and I'm like, this seems like the silliest thing ever. So I deleted my Twitter account, and then someone else took it over and started tweeting in my name. Yeah, and then a couple of friends of mine, Will Lee and Jason Calacanis, they both said, hey, you should really use Twitter to get your message out, and also somebody's tweeting in your name and they're saying crazy things. So I was like, I'll say crazy things in my name.
Did you have to pay them?
No, they I'm not sure who it was, but it was for some reason I don't know, I got my account back.
Great.
And then I was just, I don't know, to some degree it's like just sort of, I just started tweeting for fun, really, and my early tweets were quite crazy. As I was trying to explain, like, the arc of insanity is short, in that it's not very steep, because it started off insane. And so if it's still insane, it's, you know, it hasn't changed that much. Yeah, and I don't know, it seemed kind of fun to, you know, I think I said this before, it's like, you know, some people use their hair to express myself, I use Twitter.
I love that.
Why do you like Twitter so much? I mean, you could use Instagram,
As
for
opposed to
example,
other
but
platforms.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, like, I don't trust Facebook, obviously, you know, and then Instagram is fine, but it's, I think, not exactly my style. It's hard to convey a sort of intellectual arguments on Instagram. It's hard on Twitter too, but it's, but you can't, you know, it's, so, Instagram is also owned by Facebook, so I was like, you know,
Deleted.
yeah, Yeah, I just deleted it. It's like I don't really need to if I need to say something, I only really need to say it on one platform pretty much. And so if I'm trying, and I don't spend too much time on social media, so it's just like, if people want to know what I'm saying, then they can just sort of go to Twitter. I'll keep doing that as long as Twitter is good, I suppose, more good than bad. Yeah. Crypto scammers are really.
I understand that.
They've been taking advantage of Vincent recently.
Yeah, I know.
Really?
Yeah, there's like 10 Vincents out there.
Oh, right. Well, they copy everything and just like change one.
Yeah, they
thing.
use my avatars and then the picture, and then they just post like right below your tweet.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And they blocked me too.
We fight them all the time. We're always like reporting them. Like every day we report like 10 people.
Yeah, I have so many exactly conversations with Twitter. Like, come on, can you just I think it would take like 3 or 4 customer service people to just look at this. It's crypto scam. Block it.
It should be easy.
It should be easy.
But then, like my wife, Vegan Shelley, I think you liked her tweet the other day. She got banned for like replying to one of your tweets and quoting like the video inside of it. And she got suspended for like a day or something. I was like, what the heck is going on? Yeah, so it's just weird how the algorithm works.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot of manipulation, but you're going back to the Wikipedia page, it's kind of interesting just what a decade you've had. I remember I was reading somebody's article, I think they interviewed you in 2009 or something like that, and they said, if you had met Elon Musk in 2009, right after the recession, they're like struggling with the Roadster, you never would have thought that you are where you are today. You're, launching astronauts into space.
We will be, hopefully.
This year, servicing the International Space Station. I mean, Tesla with the Model 3, the Model Y, electrification really, without Tesla, it would not be where it is today. You see where the other legacy automakers are, they're not doing great. So, looking at kind of like this, like you've become this legendary figure, and looking at kind of like how people kind of see you, kind of the Ashley Vance biography or Wikipedia page, what is it that really kind of sticks out to you or, makes you laugh like that's just completely off base?
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned that I kept getting referred to as an investor in like a bunch of things. And it's like, but I actually don't invest really except in companies that I help create. So I only have, the only publicly traded share that I have at all is Tesla. I have no diversity on publicly traded shares.
Just like us.
Nothing. So, that's quite unusual. So, almost everyone diversifies to some degree. And then the only stock that I have of significance outside of Tesla is SpaceX, which is a private corporation. And then in order to get liquidity, which is mostly to reinvest in SpaceX and Tesla,